Hello, this is Mr. Jarrett, and in this video tutorial, we're going to be 3D modeling this pulley frame in SolidWorks. Now, this object itself is actually part of another assembly that we are going to be doing later down the road. And like I said, this is the frame of what I called the pulley. So this is just a random object, random pulley that I found online, and I'm calling it a pulley because it does have something that is going to be rotating in it, and they do have a part here named pulley. So this is actually the frame of it. Now there are a lot of different intricate things here that we have going on. We do have some tolerances, some limit tolerances. You've got some holes that are labeled ream, so I'm going to look at what that means. And we have what's called a keyway up here. So first, let's actually look at what some of these things mean. So a keyway, I actually have that linked here for you, is used all the times in pulleys and in manufacturing, or any type of machining. And what this allows you to do is connect an object to something else that is rotating without permanently or without a fastener on there, permanently attaching it or without a fastener on there. So basically you have a key set that's like an indent, a little key itself that sits inside of there, and then a keyway that is a cutout on something else. And when you put all three of those together, they kind of interlock. And this thing rotating forces this also to rotate with it. So that's the first thing. The next thing here says, what does ream actually mean? So if you click on that link, it just takes you to a Google search. And it says reaming is done to a hole which has already been drilled to produce a truly circular hole of exactly the right diameter. So in other words, this machine has to be pretty darn precise. That's why you can see they give you a very, very accurate measurement. It cannot be any larger than this, and it cannot be any smaller than this number. That is the limit tolerance. So that's the tolerance being the highest limit and the lowest limit. So they would drill this hole out, probably a little bit smaller than these sizes, and then they would use a reaming bit to cut a perfect circle to those exact sizes. Okay. So looking a little bit closer, you also have a broken out section here, and you have a half section down here. We are going to be using the Boss Base tool to create this large shaft here that kind of connects down from the top to the bottom. So it says the origin is located right here, and we are in inches. So I'm going to pull this to the side, and in SolidWorks I'm going to start a new part. And I'm going to be sketching on the right plane. I'm going to start out by just drawing a circle, and that's going to be that upper portion here of this. It's going to be this portion of it. I'm going to dimension that, and if I look at that picture, there's nothing that has a leader line attached to it, but you can rotate your head, and you'll see kind of right in the middle of the picture, it says 1 7/8. 1 7/8 in diameter. I'm going to extrude this. And I don't want to go to the right, I actually want to go to the left. So I'm going to hit reverse. I want to find that measurement, which is right up above this circle, and it says it is 1 inch. Now I'm going to be sketching again on that same surface. You could have done both of these in the same original sketch, but sometimes that does cause some issues with extruding. So I'm going to draw my other circle down here, and that's going to be the bottom one. So if I look back at this picture, there's nothing really that says what this is on this side, but keep in mind it's symmetrical, so you might have to find some dimensions elsewhere. So we see it is 1 1/4 in diameter, and that's going to be extruded to 3/4 of an inch. 3/4 of an inch. So this is 1 1/4, 1.25. Okay. And I got a little bit ahead of myself there. I said it's going to be extruded to 3/4, but this is still underdefined. So looking back at this, this is straight up and down from that. You can't really see it in this picture because it's cut, but if you look over here, very slightly from the origin, there is a very light extension line all the way down to this other center point. So they are vertical from one another, and over here it has a measurement that says 5.5 in distance from one another. So coming back to SolidWorks, I'm going to hit Escape to get off my dimension tool. I'm going to select the center point and the origin, and I'll make them vertical. and then I'm going to dimension from the origin down to that circle is going to be 5.5. Now I can go ahead and extrude. And once again, this also goes to the left. And this is 0.75. Okay, now you might be wondering why I didn't do the holes. I'm actually going to do the holes at the very end once I have the other side built as well. So now comes the difficult part. I'm going to pull this back so we can look at this. We have a larger circle up top and a smaller circle down at the bottom. And this shaft, I guess, if you want to call that, or this connecting piece, has to connect down to this. And it can't just go to the exact middle of these circles, because that would actually cut through the larger circle. And that might be a little confusing, but I'm going to show you that here in a second. So what we need to do is kind of 3 steps before we can make the solid portion of this. The first step is going to be drawing the outside lines of this. I'll call those the guides, okay, so that it blends in perfect to each circle. The second step is going to be drawing this elliptical shape down at the bottom and up here at the top so that they can blend or get lofted into one another perfectly. So let's figure out how we can actually draw so that this is blending in perfectly. Well, up here it doesn't really show you where anything starts, nor does it down here. Okay, so we might have to look somewhere else. When I look over here, I can see the overall measurement of this is 3/4 of an inch. And I can see this tiny measurement right here says it's 1/8 of an inch sticking out this way. And the elliptical section, the middle section, is going to be 1/2 inch wide. So if I do some math, if I think through this, 3/4 minus 1/2 inch, I've got 1/4 left. Well, if this sticks out 1/8 inch over here, that means it also has to stick out 1/8 inch over there. So this down here is perfectly centered left and right of this small circle. I can't see that up here, but what I can see in the picture is that this sticks out on this side 1/8 of an inch, but the math doesn't add up. Okay, if this is 1/2 inch, the math doesn't add up to give us perfectly centered on this side. So we are going to be making a plane using the bottom portion of this. So be on your Features tab, go up to Reference Geometry and Plane, and we're going to select both sides of this shape, okay, of this cylinder down at the bottom, so that it's making a plane directly in the middle. Now I'm going to hit the green check. I'm going to sketch on that plane. And this is where I talked about it would cut through if you went to the perfect outsides. So watch what I do first, and don't do this. Again, do not do this. I'm trying to show you what I was talking about. If I went from the perfect outside, the left side of this, up to that left side, this is not going to work for us. This is what most people would do. Well, down here, this technically isn't even tangent. And up here, if I zoom in real close, then my computer's probably going to glitch because it can't produce a circle perfectly. What's actually happening here, if we went to go 3D loft this down the road, we would actually see that this line is technically cutting into the circle and then back out of the circle to connect over there. So you would have a weird sliver over here, and you would be off just by a little bit. And since this thing is very specific with those reamings and tolerances, this is not correct. So here's what we actually need to do. We're going to get our line tool, and I'm going to select the circle. Notice I didn't click on any of the yellow, and I'm going to select this circle. And I'll hit Escape, get my line tool again, do the same thing. Oops, you saw my SolidWorks did not like what I was doing. It just jumped to the middle. I'm going to bring this back out, have it connected out there. Now, I don't want these to be vertical lines or anything like that. I want these to be tangent to the circles where they connect. So notice I only have a coincident right now. If you see any other relations right now on your lines other than the coincidence to the circle, delete them. Meaning if you see a different relation, you right click and hit delete. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to select my circle, hold in Shift, select the line, and I'm going to make this tangent. I'm going to do this on the opposite side as well, and then the other two connection points. Down here, just to kind of show you, if I got a construction line and I went to the center of this, it wants to cooperate, which it's not. If I went from the center of this, it is going to probably be that spot, right? But up here, it's not. So watch. If I get my midpoint and I'll make this a construction line. Again, you don't have to draw this, but just to kind of show you and prove my point, where its tangent is not straight on the outside. It is before that. So again, if you were at tangency here, or if you were at connection here, it would be going into the circle and then back out of the circle. And that tiny little bit would throw you off. So that I don't mess my own self up, I am actually going to delete this construction line here. But now I'm going to hit return from sketch, and I have my guides. Disappeared. So now we're going to go to the Features tab, and we're going to be creating a plane that cuts right through here. So Reference Geometry Plane. I'm going to hit the drop down first and select the top plane. And I'll zoom in, and I actually want a plane that's right here on the end of this point, because that's where it cuts through or blends in to this top cylinder. Hit the green check. Now I'm going to sketch on that. And again, if I look back at this picture, we know that this is an elliptical shape that blends right up into it. It's 1/8 of an inch away from the right, and it's 1/2 inch wide at all times. So I'll get my ellipse. And I have this little dot right here. I'm sure you probably do as well. That is the center of the bottom one down below. So I'll just kind of make my little ellipse. Just kind of go up and stop. Now you notice up here it looks like it's coincident, but sometimes it doesn't lock in anyways. It locked into this construction line, but it didn't lock into anything else. And that line that you're actually seeing there, that is actually this slanted line that's coming down. So I like to tilt my screen a little bit because it helps you see. You don't want to click right on the edge of the part. What you actually want here is this dot to connect to the dot here of where this is. So I'm going to hold in Shift, and I'll click on this. Now you might be just saying, well, why can't we just click on the edge? And it looks like it's on the edge. Keep in mind, you are actually drawing from the top view here. So when we look from the top view of all of this, you are seeing down through the part. So I know it is very, very, very tiny, but if you zoom in, you can see that point that we just connected it to is not right here on the edge. Okay? So I'll do that on the other side as well. Rotate my screen just slightly. You might have to move your dot away. Okay, so mine's connected already, even though it says it isn't. Now we just need to dimension this. So I'll go from one side to the other, and this is going to be 1/2 inch, 0.5. And just to show you here, if we go from here to the origin, it's going to be driven obviously, but just to look at it, you can see it is 1/8 of an inch. So this sketch is done. It's fully defined. So we're going to hit return, and we're going to repeat that process down here towards the bottom. So Features tab, Reference Geometry and Plane. Our first reference is going to be the top plane. Our second reference is going to be this point right here. We're going to hit the green check, and then we're going to be sketching on that plane. Now, you are seeing down through the entire part, so this can get confusing as well. If you want to rotate your screen, maybe that'll help you. But I actually like drawing through this for the very fact that it already has some of the features that I want. So I'm going to click the center of this ellipse, and I'll just kind of go up somewhere, go out until that point on the ellipse. I'll hit escape, then I can dimension this. So from one side to the other, it's 0.5. You might not have to do that, because if you just drag your points back and forth, they will connect to the other ellipse, so that's the exact same. And if I rotate my screen, I want to do the same thing I did before. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to select the end point of that line and this dot here. I'll make those coincident, and it should fully define it. Again, you might not have to put this 1/2 inch in, just to show you here. If I delete this, I go to the top view where I was drawing. You might have just been able to bring this over and connect it right to the other ellipse. Same thing, either way, they're both 1/2 inch. I'm going to hit return from sketch. Now I have my parts done. So now let's go to the Features tab and hit Loft, Lofted Boss Base, Profile 1, Profile 2. And then we're going to select the guide curves. I'm going to click the outside here. I'll just hit the green check because this is going to be an open loop because it's not closed. Green check. Same thing on this side. Green check. And what that's doing is it's forcing it to follow those paths. It can't go outside of those paths, as you can see. We'll hit the green check here. And now that is lofted together. Pretty interesting shape so far. Let's start to make the other side. And you might say, well, why don't we put in the holes now? Again, they are different. Okay, on this side, it is 0.625 to 0.624. Over here, it's not. So I'm not going to do those holes yet. Just going to wait to the end. And this hole down here, even though it's the same, I'll just draw one and cut it through all the way at the very end. So right now, we're going to try to mirror this over to this side. And that's one of those extra things I said, things to learn. We're going to be bodies to mirror, not features to mirror. You're going to see it's a little bit different when you're trying to mirror lofts. SOLIDWORKS doesn't like that as well. It's not just click on the feature. It's actually a body to mirror. So, how do we figure out how to get this over here? Well, the spacing in between these two says it's 2 3/4. So from the origin or from that plane, I'm going to offset another plane that's half that distance to mirror across. So make sure nothing's selected. Reference geometry and plane. I'm going to select this surface right here. And I want to type in 2.75, so 2 3/4, divided by 2. And as you can see, the number I already had up there was from when I was practicing before this video. It is 1.375. And hit my green check. Now I'm going to go up to mirror. And you don't want features here. If yours opens this way, you want to close that. We actually want bodies to mirror. Okay, and when you open up the bodies to mirror, you want to uncheck this merge solid, because that might give you some issues. You're not actually merging anything. This is still going to be floating in mid-space. And we want the loft. So if we just click on loft, you might be saying, well, what about extrusion 1 and 2? Well, see, this is a body. So that loft connects into those. So when you select loft, it should, there we go, I had to click out here, not the drop down. It should bring over everything. I'm going to hit the green check. Okay. And sure, if you'd like to pause the video and go back and try to do the features just so you can see what I'm saying, instead of mirroring the body, try to mirror the feature, it's not going to let you do it. Okay, so we had to do it that way. Now, we got a lot of planes going on. Some of these planes kind of get in the way every once in a while. They annoy me. So I'm going to right-click and turn some of these planes off. Just hide them. Well, I am going to leave plane 4 here because we are going to be using that down the road. So now that we have that other part, let's actually put in our holes. So we'll sketch out here on this surface. Zoom in. Get my circle tool, and if I just move my mouse out towards the outside, the center should pop up, which it did. Draw a circle, dimension this. Looking at my picture, we need to find the hole size here. So it doesn't say it down here, it doesn't say it there, but it does say over here, it actually says 0.625 to 624, and it says 3 holes. So we'd have to assume, since there's only 4 holes in the picture, these 2 also apply for that measurement. I'm going to type in 0.625. Now you might be saying, well, what about the 624? Okay, over here on this left side is where we're going to change that. So I'm going to hit the green check first. With that dimension still selected, over here on the left, you can see it says tolerance and precision. So I'm going to change this to limit. Okay, and right now it says up or down. Well, we don't want to go up from this measurement. We just want to go down. And how much do we want to go down? We want to go down 0.001. So if you do that math in your head, 001 is going to be 0.624. Now, it's only showing 2 decimal places over here, so the precision is going to be changed to 3 decimal places so we can actually see that measurement. If you want to put a little note on here, you can as well. Notice down here this dimension text is what's actually being shown. So if you want to put ream down here in all caps, you can just type in ream and it will show up over there. Okay, green check. So I'm going to go to Features tab and Extrude Cut, and this is going to be cut through all. Check. All right. Now let's sketch up here on this outside surface. And I'm going to zoom in, get my circle tool. And this one has the origin there, so you don't have to hold your mouse on the outside. You can just kind of draw your circle off of it. And same process. We'll dimension, and if we look at the picture, it says it is 0.875. We'll hit the green check, and then we'll change. We'll change this precision to 3. We'll change our tolerance type to limit, and I'm going to change this to 001. Again, if you want to add ream in here, you can. You can check. I'm going to extrude cut, but I'm not going to do through all because it's not the same thing over here. You could just randomly guess a measurement, but I don't like to do that. So what I'll do is I'll change it from blind to up to surface, and I'll rotate around, and I'll click this back surface. I'll hit the green check. Now it only cuts through until it hits that surface. Now you can sketch right here on this, which is the picture. That's how the picture shows it, but it's going to rotate you, and you're going to be looking through that. So I actually like to sketch on this outside. I'm going to rotate and sketch on this outside. It's a little bit easier. Get my circle. Same process as before for the bottom circles. And this is 0.625. And change your tolerance and precision. Okay, so now I'm good here. I have my size, but I don't have my keyway yet. If you want to add ream, you can. Check. Now to add that keyway, zoom in and get my rectangle tool. This is pretty simple to do. Just kind of draw it across like this. Okay, and it is connected at one point. The other point also needs to be connected, so I'll just drag that in. Sometimes it locks in. In this case, it's not, so I'll hold in Shift and I'll select the two. I'll make them coincident, so it's locked in. That also means it's centered on that circle. Okay, so now we just need to look close at the measurements for that keyway. So it says it's 1/8 by 1/16. So the 1/8, if you're looking at the picture, looks like it's the width and 1/16 of an inch tall. So 1/8 is this. It's going to be 0.125. And the 1/16 is going to be the height. So it's going to be from there. So that's 0.0625. 0.0625. So I'll just change these precisions just so you can see and you don't mess up. Okay, so there we go. We do want to trim these. If you get trim entities, you can just kind of power trim right down through. Now, because I did that, you can see that this also just made it underdefined here. So this is pretty simple. All we need to do is either dimension from here to the center point or just draw a construction line up. But it just needs to be the 1/16 of an inch, half the 1/8 over. Okay, so there you go. That's all done. Go to the Features tab, Extrude Cut. Similar process to what we did over here. I'm going to change it from blind to up to surface. Rotate around and click on this inside surface. Now we have all of our holes done. Now the last thing that we need to do here, besides filleting, is draw this connector piece. There's a lot going on down here, and it's really tiny to see some of these measurements. I'm going to continue to zoom in so I can see this just slightly better. And it almost looks like a large capital I. Okay, but keep in mind this is on an angle, so these aren't vertical lines. These are actually angled lines over here. We do have a lot of radiuses, and those radiuses are just basically pointing to the different corners. But I do see that it's a 16th inch radius up at the top, which I'm guessing that's also like the bottoms of these. Okay, and it's an 1/8 inch radius on the inside here. It says it's 3/16 thick, 3/16 thick, and 3/16 thick there. Okay, the overall height from here to here is 1 3/16, and it's up from the center of this bottom circle just 1 inch. So that shouldn't be too bad to actually draw. And we're going to draw right in the middle of these two and then extrude both ways until it hits. So to do that, I'm just going to sketch on plane 4. That's why I left this up. And we're not going to be sketching up there. We're obviously going to be sketching down here. And like I said, these lines are on angles. So I'm going to get my line tool, and I'll just simply sketch this random shape out. So I'll just go over till I connect to this one. Go down a little bit and in. Just kind of draw that capital I shape. Then we'll worry about the fillets and all the dimensions afterwards. Just make sure you're drawing horizontal lines here and vertical lines, other than the outside where I'm obviously just following the outside shape. So that looks pretty good. Okay, I know this line and this line are going to be collinear. They are also going to be equal to one another. If we make them equal now, when we go to fillet, it's going to yell at us. We do have an extra warning we can just bypass, but I'll just wait to do that. And I also know these here are also collinear, meaning they're straight across from one another. And let's go ahead and start to dimension this. And I'm going to put in all the other dimensions besides the fillets first so that it doesn't kind of move on me. So from here to the center of this circle, so I just click the circle, it should drop right to the center. It says it's 1 inch up. The entire thing from here to here said it is 1 3/16, so 1 space 3/16. And the wall thicknesses are all 3/16. I'm going to change that one so it's 4. So from here to here, it says it was 3/16. This is also 3/16. So is the bottom. Okay. Now the middle can still shift left and right. So I'm going to add in my fillets, and then I'll just make these lines equal, and it'll center this later. I'll get my fillet tool. Remember, it said it's 1/16, so 0.0625 for these top corners. These outside corners of the eyepiece, I guess you would call it, top and bottom. Green check. And then it has an 1/8, so 0.125 for the inside here. Check. Now I can make these equal. So if I go from there to here, I want to get off my fillet tool first. I want to select this line and I make them equal. It should center that for me. Now, to see where I'm actually drawing here, floating in the middle. Okay. So if I go to the Features tab and hit Extrude, you'd think we would just change this from blind to midplane, but that doesn't really help us here because we'd just be guessing a measurement. Now, you could do that. You could just pull this so it is somewhat inside visibly, but I don't like to do that again. So let's kind of figure out how to do this. So instead of being midplane, I'm going to change this to up to next, and it's going to go until it hits this. And that's for direction 1. So if I just enable direction 2, it's going to go the opposite way. I'll change the same thing, up to next. So it's going to go until it hits that. I'm going to hit the green check. And now it's blended perfect. Okay. Last thing we need to do here is add fillets. If I pull this back over, fillets that I'm talking about, notice where this blends in, it says it's 1/16 radius. A 1/16 inch radius, and it also has it here as well. I'll pull this to the side, get my fillet tool, type in 0.0625, and I should be able just to click right on this face and on that face, because we want all of the edges that touches If I pull this picture back, I actually want to show you one last thing here. Notice how on this part, this surface is white. So is this and this. Okay, these surfaces are white, and the outside surface here still has this gray, like black and white dimply effect for a reason. So this is actually casted, meaning it was put into a mold, or there was a mold created in sand, and melted metal, in this case it would be iron, was poured into that mold and actually hardened, and then it was pulled out of the mold, and this surface was flattened off or surfaced off. Same thing with all of these. That's why they're white, meaning they are chiseled corners. They are perfect corners. This side, however, still has that little dimple effect. It's got that look of the sand casting, and it actually has this being filleted as well. So no other edges down here are filleted, just this one. This back over, so I'm going to do this edge right here, and the same thing on the opposite side. Hit the green check. And that should go through for you. If it doesn't, you probably have an error somewhere. Now we can change our material, so hit Edit Material. This is going to be iron, gray cast iron. We're going to hit Apply and Close. And if that plane 4 still annoys you, turn that off now. You should be able to evaluate in Mask Properties. You should be able to get 3.4342.